The alarm echoed through every corridor of Concordance Prime, the massive orbital station where 12 different species came together to trade and negotiate in peace. Lucy Grant was eating her breakfast when the red lights started flashing, and she dropped her spoon into her bowl of oatmeal as the emergency broadcast filled the air. A dangerous creature had escaped from a trading vessel. All personnel were ordered to remain in their quarters until further notice. Lucy was a scientist who studied alien life forms, and she had been stationed on Concordance Prime for nearly 2 years. She was a small woman with brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail, and her colleagues often said she had the patience of a stone. Nothing seemed to shake her, not even now as she pulled up the security feeds on her personal screen and saw what had escaped. The creature was enormous. It filled the cargo bay like a nightmare given flesh, with 6 powerful limbs and a body covered in dark scales that seemed to absorb the light around them. Bioluminescent markings ran along its spine and face, glowing a faint purple in the dim emergency lighting. Its mouth was filled with teeth the size of kitchen knives, and its 6 golden eyes scanned the space around it with terrible intelligence. The station's database identified it as a apex predator from a quarantined death world that no species was permitted to visit. Lucy watched as the creature tore through a containment barrier like it was made of paper. Security teams fired at it with energy weapons, but the beast moved faster than anything that size should be able to move. It disappeared into the lower cargo levels, leaving behind 3 injured guards and a trail of destruction. Commander Hal Cooper found Lucy in her quarters 30 minutes later. He was the human security liaison on the station, a tall man with gray hair and a face that showed every year of his long career. He looked exhausted and worried as he stepped through her door. "They need you at the council chamber," he said. "Ambassador has called an emergency session, and they want every expert they can find." Lucy nodded and followed him through the corridors. The station felt different now, quieter and more afraid. The various alien species they passed moved in hurried groups, their eyes darting to every shadow. Fear had spread through Concordance Prime like a disease. The council chamber was a great circular room at the heart of the station where representatives from all 12 species gathered to make decisions. Today it was filled with shouting voices and angry gestures. Ambassador stood at the center, his tall body towering over most of the others. He had 4 arms and a head that resembled a praying mantis, with compound eyes that reflected the light in hundreds of tiny fragments. He raised his arms and the room slowly fell silent. "We face a crisis," the ambassador said, his voice clicking and buzzing through the universal translator. "A has been released on this station through the carelessness of the trading guild. We must decide how to respond." Merchant Lord stepped forward. He was a reptilian creature covered in green scales, with a long snout and eyes that never seemed to blink. His people, were known throughout the galaxy as traders who would buy and sell anything for the right price. "The creature was properly contained when we docked," said defensively. "The containment field failed due to a power fluctuation in your station systems. This is not our fault." "Fault does not matter now," replied. "What matters is the creature is loose, and it must be destroyed before it kills everyone on this station." A murmur of agreement spread through the chamber. Lucy listened as speaker after speaker rose to demand the immediate extermination of the called it a monster, the called it a weapon, the simply called it death and refused to say anything more. Lucy raised her hand and waited until the ambassador acknowledged her. "May I ask a question?" she said. "Why was the captured in the first place? The death worlds are quarantined for a reason. No one is supposed to go there." The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to Merchant Lord, who shifted uncomfortably under the attention. "The people face a plague," he admitted finally. "A sickness that has killed millions on our colony worlds. Our scientists discovered that are immune to this disease. We hope to study the creature and find a cure." "So you brought a monster onto a civilian station without telling anyone," Commander Cooper said, his voice hard with anger. You endangered 12 species because you wanted to save your own. We took precautions, protested. The creature was sedated and contained. We could not have predicted the power failure. Ambassador clicked his mandibles impatiently. This debate serves no purpose, he said. The creature is dangerous beyond measure, have killed thousands on their home world. They are pure predators with no intelligence and no mercy. We must terminate it before more lives are lost. Lucy had been studying her while the others argued. She pulled up the sensor readings from the cargo bay, the biological scans taken during the creature's escape, and the limited research available on physiology. Something about the data bothered her, something that did not match what the others were saying. Ambassador, she said, may I examine the sensor logs more closely? I am seeing readings that do not match the behavior of a hunting predator. Tilted his head, his compound eyes focusing on her with curiosity. Explain. The creature's stress hormones are extremely elevated, Lucy said. Its heart rate is nearly double what it should be for an animal of that size. The bioluminescent patterns are irregular and dim. She looked up from her. This creature is not hunting. It is terrified. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Several species laughed at the idea that such a monster could feel fear. Others accused Lucy of being naive or foolish. Merchant Lord simply shook his head. Humans, he said with contempt, always trying to see gentleness where there is only danger. Ambassador raised his arms for silence. The council will vote, he announced, all in favor of immediate termination. Every hand, claw, tentacle, and appendage in the room rose. The vote was unanimous. Lucy stepped forward before the ambassador could continue. I request time to study the creature before it is killed, she said. 48 hours to determine if there is another way. The ambassador studied her for a long moment. You have 12 hours, he said finally. At dawn, the creature dies. Lucy nodded and turned to leave the chamber. Commander Cooper caught her arm as she passed. What are you planning to do? He asked quietly. Lucy looked back at the council, at the frightened faces and the eager weapons, at a room full of species who had already decided that death was the only answer. I am going to go talk to it, she said. And before anyone could stop her, she walked out of the chamber and headed for the cargo levels below. The cargo levels were dark and silent when Lucy stepped out of the elevator. The station had cut power to everything except emergency lighting to prevent the creature from escaping to other sections. Red lights glowed at regular intervals along the ceiling, casting long shadows between the rows of shipping containers and abandoned equipment. Lucy carried no weapons. She had a small bag over her shoulder containing her scanning equipment, a medical kit, and several packages of emergency rations. Commander Cooper had begged her not to go alone, had offered to send a security team with her, but she had refused. Weapons and soldiers would only make things worse. The cargo level stretched out before her like a maze. Containers stacked 3 high created narrow corridors that twisted and turned without logic. Somewhere in this darkness, a creature the size of a small shuttle was hiding, and Lucy intended to find it. She walked slowly, making no effort to hide her footsteps. Predators responded to sneaking and stalking, but Lucy was not trying to hunt She wanted it to know she was coming. She wanted it to hear a single set of footsteps approaching without aggression or fear. The damage from the creature's escape was visible everywhere. Claw marks gouged the metal walls. Containers had been knocked aside like toys. Lucy followed the trail of destruction deeper into the level, her scanner beeping softly as it tracked biological signatures. She found the 20 minutes later. The creature had wedged itself into a corner behind a collapsed storage unit, pressing its massive body into the smallest space it could find. Lucy stopped at the end of the corridor and simply looked at it, taking in details that the security cameras had missed. There was hurt. Deep burns marked its hide along the left side, ugly wounds that had not been treated or cleaned. The scales around the burns were cracked and discolored, and Lucy could see dried blood matted in the spaces between them. The creature's bioluminescent markings, which should have glowed bright purple according to her research, were dim and flickering like dying candles. 6 golden eyes watched her from the darkness. The creature did not move, did not growl, did not attack. It simply watched, its massive body trembling slightly with each breath. Lucy sat down on the floor, crossing her legs beneath her. She kept her movements slow and deliberate, showing the creature that she meant no threat. Then she opened her bag and pulled out a scanner. "Hello," she said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." It did not respond, but its eyes tracked her every movement. Lucy activated her scanner and began taking readings, building a complete picture of the creature's biology. What she found made her heart ache. The burns were from capture weapons, high-powered energy discharges designed to subdue dangerous animals. The had been shot multiple times during its capture, and the wounds had been left untreated during its transport to the station. The creature was in constant pain, running a fever, and showing early signs of infection. But the physical injuries were not what shocked Lucy the most. She ran the scan again to make sure she was reading it correctly. This brain structure was far more complex than any predator had a right to possess. Neural pathways crisscrossed in patterns that indicated advanced problem-solving abilities, emotional processing, and possibly even abstract thought. This creature was not a mindless beast. It was intelligent, possibly as intelligent as many of the species in the council chamber above. Lucy lowered her scanner and looked at them with new eyes. "You understand me," she said quietly. "Maybe not my words, but you understand that I am trying to help. Do you not?" The creature's bioluminescent markings flickered, just for a moment, in what might have been a response. Lucy reached into her bag and pulled out a package of emergency rations. She opened it slowly, letting the creature see what she was doing, and then placed the food on the ground between them. Then she took out a second package, opened it, and began eating herself. "I know you are scared," she said between bites. "I know you are hurt. I know everyone on this station wants to kill you, and I know you do not understand why this is happening to you." She swallowed and met the creature's golden gaze. "But I am not going to let them hurt you, not without a fight." Time passed slowly in the darkness. Lucy finished her meal and remained seated, making no move toward the creature or away from it. She simply existed in the same space, breathing the same air, sharing the same silence. Above them, in the council chamber, the political battle continued. Commander Cooper appeared before the gathered representatives to argue for more time. He spoke of human history, of the wolves that became dogs and the wildcats that became companions. Humans had a talent for befriending dangerous creatures, he said. They had been doing it for thousands of years. Ambassador was skeptical. Humans are from a death world themselves, he pointed out. Perhaps they simply recognize their own kind. Perhaps, Cooper agreed. But is that not exactly what you need right now? Someone who understands what it means to be feared. Merchant Lord watched the security feed from the cargo level on his personal screen. He saw the human woman sitting calmly in front of the monster, eating her dinner as if she had not a care in the world. He did not understand humans, and moments like this reminded him that he probably never would. In the darkness below, Lucy noticed movement. The had shifted slightly, its massive head turning toward the food she had left on the ground. The creature's nostrils flared as it took in the scent. "Go ahead," Lucy said gently. "It is for you." The hesitated for a long moment. Then, slowly, carefully, it reached out with one of its 6 limbs and pulled the food toward itself. The creature ate quickly, desperately, and Lucy realized it probably had not been fed properly since its capture. She pulled out another package of rations and placed it on the ground. Then another and another, until her bag was empty. They ate everything she offered. When the food was gone, the creature looked at Lucy with something new in its golden eyes. Not trust, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of curiosity. Perhaps the beginning of hope. Lucy checked the time on her scanner. 6 hours remained until dawn. She had work to do. She pulled up her communication device and sent a message to Commander Cooper. "Tell the Council to check the cargo bay holding area," she said. "Tell them to look for evidence of how they treated this creature during transport. Tell them to look at the capture wounds and the lack of food and water. Then ask them if they still think thee is the monster in this story." She closed the device and looked at the creature watching her from the shadows. "I am going to call you Nova," she said, "because right now you are the thing in this darkness." The bioluminescent markings flickered again, and this time Lucy was certain it was a response. Somewhere above, Security Chief of the received the Council's orders and began assembling his team. The deadline was approaching, and he had no intention of waiting until dawn. The hunt would begin in 6 hours. Or sooner. Commander Hal Cooper stood before the Council with evidence displayed on the chamber's central screen. The images showed the holding cell where they had been kept during its transport to the station. The floor was bare metal with no bedding. There was no water dispenser, no food container, nothing but cold walls and chains. "This creature was captured 3 weeks ago," Cooper said, his voice steady but angry. "For 3 weeks it was kept in this cell. It was fed twice. It was given water 4 times. Its wounds from capture were never treated." He turned to face Merchant Lord directly. "You did not bring a monster to this station. You brought a torture victim." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species were horrified by the treatment. Others insisted it did not matter how the creature had been kept, because it was still dangerous. Ambassador struggled to maintain order as accusations flew back and forth across the room. Merchant Lord raised his scaled hands defensively. "It is a predator," he protested, "a killer from a death world. We could not risk treating it with kindness. What if it had escaped during the journey?" "It did escape," Cooper replied coldly. "And maybe it would not have been so desperate to run if you had shown it any mercy at all." Deep in the cargo levels below, Lucy Grant sat in the same spot she had occupied for hours. Her legs were cramped and her back ached, but she did not move. Nova had finally relaxed enough to stop trembling, and Lucy refused to do anything that might frighten the creature again. She had used the time to study everything available about biology and behavior. The information was limited, mostly collected during the initial surveys of the death world before it was quarantined. But what she found confirmed her suspicions. Were pack animals. They lived in family groups of 6 to 10 individuals, hunting together and sharing the care of their young. They communicated through patterns of bioluminescence, flashing complex sequences of light that conveyed meaning to others of their kind. The species had never been studied in depth because no researcher had survived long enough on the death world to observe them properly. Lucy looked at Nova with new understanding. The creature was not just injured and scared. She was alone, separated from her family, unable to communicate with anyone around her. The flickering of her bioluminescent markings was not random. It was language, words that no one on the station could understand. "I am sorry," Lucy said softly. "I wish I could speak your language. I wish I could tell you that you are safe now." Nova's markings flickered in a slow pattern, repeating 3 times before fading. Lucy pulled out her scanner and recorded the sequence. She would study it later, try to find meaning in the patterns. For now, she had more immediate concerns. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the last thing she had brought with her. It was a small container of medical gel, designed to treat burns and prevent infection. Lucy opened the container and held it up so Nova could see it. "This is medicine," she explained. "It will help your wounds heal, but I need to touch you to apply it. Will you let me do that?" Nova's golden eyes fixed on the container. The creature's nostrils flared as she took in the scent of the gel. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Nova shifted her massive body, turning slightly to expose the burned section of her hide. It was not quite permission, but it was close enough. Lucy moved slowly, rising to her feet with careful deliberation. She approached the one step at a time, pausing after each step to make sure the creature remained calm. Nova watched her with intense focus but did not pull away. When Lucy was close enough to touch, she stopped and extended her hand, palm up, showing that she held nothing dangerous. Nova leaned forward, her enormous head descending until it was level with Lucy's face. The creature's breath was warm and smelled of iron. "I am going to help you," Lucy whispered. "I promise." She reached out and placed her hand gently on Nova's snout. In the council chamber above, every representative watched through Lucy's suit camera as the feed was transmitted to the central screen. They saw the human woman, small and fragile and completely unarmed, touch the monster that had terrorized their station. Nova did not bite. Nova did not attack. Nova closed her golden eyes and pressed her head more firmly against Lucy's palm. Ambassador's compound eyes reflected the image 1,000 times over. "This is impossible," he said quietly. Merchant Lord stared at the screen with his mouth hanging open. "What trick is this?" he demanded. "What are humans hiding from us? What ability do they possess that we do not know about?" Commander Cooper smiled slightly. "No tricks," he said. "No hidden abilities. Humans just remember what it was like to be afraid. We remember what it means to need someone to trust." Lucy spent the next hour treating Nova's wounds. She applied the medical gel carefully, working her way along the burned sections of hide while speaking softly to keep the creature calm. Nova endured the treatment with patience, occasionally making low, rumbling sounds that Lucy chose to interpret as gratitude. When she finished, Lucy stepped back and looked at her work. The gel would need time to take effect, but already Nova seemed more comfortable. Her bioluminescent markings had grown slightly brighter, pulsing in steady rhythms rather than flickering randomly. Lucy sat down again, this time much closer to the. Nova shifted her massive body and curled around the human woman like a cat settling around a kitten. The creature's warmth surrounded Lucy, and she realized with surprise that she was not afraid at all. Her communication device buzzed. She checked the message and felt her stomach drop. Security Chief was refusing to wait until dawn. He had assembled his team and was preparing to descend to the cargo levels immediately. The Council had not authorized the early attack, but was, and his people had lost family members to creatures like Nova. He was not interested in waiting for permission. Lucy looked at Nova, at the creature who had finally found a moment of peace after weeks of suffering. "They are coming," she said, "and I do not know how to stop them." Nova's bioluminescent markings flashed in a pattern Lucy had not seen before. It was faster than the others, more urgent, and it repeated several times in quick succession. Lucy did not know what it meant, but she could guess. The understood danger. And the danger was coming. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and Security Chief stepped onto the cargo level with 12 armed soldiers behind him. He was a species known throughout the galaxy for their dedication to order and their skill in combat. His gray skin was marked with ritual scars that told the story of his life, and his eyes burned with a hatred that had been building for years. Had lost his brother to a creature much like the. His colony had been attacked by predators from a nearby death world, and his brother had died protecting the children of their village. Had sworn that day to never let another monster threaten innocent lives. He had joined station security to keep people safe, and he would not fail them now. The soldiers spread out in a tactical formation, their weapons raised and ready. They moved through the cargo level with practiced efficiency, checking corners and clearing containers as they advanced toward the creature's last known location. They found Lucy Grant standing in the middle of the corridor, blocking their path. "Move aside," ordered. "This creature must be terminated for the safety of the station." Lucy did not move. She stood with her arms at her sides and her chin raised, a small human woman facing down a squad of armed warriors. Behind her, Nova had emerged from her hiding spot and was watching the soldiers with wary golden eyes. "The council gave me 12 hours," Lucy said calmly. "The deadline has not passed." "The council does not understand the danger," replied. "Every moment that creature lives is a moment it could escape and kill again. I have seen what these beasts can do. I will not wait for more people to die." "This creature has not killed anyone," Lucy said. "She has been imprisoned and tortured and starved, but she has not attacked a single person on this station. The only injuries during her escape were caused by your own security teams shooting at a frightened animal." His jaw tightened. "Frightened," he repeated with contempt. "That thing is not capable of fear. It is a predator, a weapon designed by evolution to kill. You are a fool to stand between it and justice." Lucy shook her head slowly. "You are wrong," she said. "Nova is intelligent. She communicates through light patterns. She understands that I am trying to help her. She has shown me more trust in the last few hours than most people show in a lifetime. She is not a monster. She is a person just like you and me." The soldiers exchanged uncomfortable glances. They had seen the feed from Lucy's suit camera, had watched her touch the creature without being harmed. But they were also trained to follow orders and was their commanding officer. Nova made a low sound deep in her chest, a rumble that vibrated through the floor. Her bioluminescent markings began to glow brighter, patterns racing along her spine in sequences too fast for Lucy to follow. "Your beast is preparing to attack," said, raising his weapon. "Move aside now or I will shoot through you." Lucy did not flinch. "If you shoot me," she said quietly, "you will have to explain to the council why you murdered an unarmed human scientist to kill a creature that was not threatening anyone. She met eyes without fear, and you will have to explain it to yourself." The corridor fell silent. His finger hovered over the trigger, his hatred warring with his training. He wanted the creature dead, wanted to avenge his brother and every other victim of predators like this one. But Lucy was right. Shooting her would be murder, and he was not a murderer. The standoff might have lasted forever if Ambassador had not arrived. The tall appeared at the far end of the corridor, his 4 arms spread in a gesture of authority. "Enough," he said, his translator clicking and buzzing. "Security Chief, you have exceeded your authority. Stand down immediately." Turned to face the Ambassador, his weapon still raised. "This creature must die," he insisted. "You saw what it did during its escape. You know what its kind are capable of." "I saw a frightened animal defending itself against attackers," replied. "And I saw a human woman walk unarmed into its presence and treat its wounds with kindness." He paused, his compound eyes reflecting the dim light. "I do not understand humans. Their behavior confuses and often disturbs me, but I cannot deny what I have witnessed today." Merchant Lord appeared behind the Ambassador, his green scales gleaming in the emergency lighting. He looked uncomfortable, as if the words he was about to speak caused him physical pain. "I have been in contact with my people," said. "The Trade Guild is willing to fund a research facility for the creature, a proper habitat where it can be studied safely and treated humanely." He glanced at Lucy with something that might have been respect. "The human woman has shown us that thee is more than we believed. We should not waste this opportunity for knowledge." Stared at the merchant with disbelief. "You were the one who captured it," he said. "You were the one who brought it here. Now you want to save it." "I want the plague research," admitted honestly. "But I also want to understand how a single human accomplished what an entire capture team could not." He gestured toward Lucy and Nova. She walked into the darkness unarmed and came out with a companion. If humans can do this, what else are they capable of? Ambassador stepped forward and placed one of his 4 hands on shoulder. "The creature will be transported to a secure facility," he said. "It will not be released, but it will not be killed. This is the Council's decision." Stood frozen for a long moment. Then slowly he lowered his weapon. "My brother deserved better," he said quietly. "Your brother deserved to live," Lucy said softly. "But Nova did not kill him. She has never killed anyone. Punishing her for the actions of other creatures will not bring him back." Really looked at her for the first time since arriving. Nova had moved closer to Lucy during the confrontation, positioning her massive body protectively around the human woman. Her bioluminescent markings pulsed in slow, calm patterns, and her golden eyes watched with an intelligence he had refused to see before. "Perhaps," said finally, "some things are more complicated than I believed." He turned and walked away, his soldiers following behind him. The confrontation was over. Lucy let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. She turned to face Nova and placed her hand on the creature's snout. "We did it," she whispered. "You are going to be okay." Nova's markings flashed in a pattern Lucy was beginning to recognize. It seemed to mean something like gratitude or perhaps relief. Ambassador approached cautiously, keeping a respectful distance from "A transport pod will need to be prepared," he said. "The creature must enter it willingly, or we will face the same problems as before." Lucy nodded. She understood what the ambassador was asking. Nova would need to trust strangers to take her away from the only friendly face she had found since her capture. It would not be easy. But Lucy had 12 hours, and she intended to use every minute of them. "Give me time," she said. "I will make sure she understands." Inclined his head. "You have earned that time," he said, "and perhaps something more." He paused, considering his next words carefully. "I believe I was wrong about your species, Lucy Grant. Humans are strange and often confusing, but you are not as foolish as I thought." Coming from the ambassador, it was practically a compliment. Lucy turned back to Nova and began the slow process of preparing the creature for the next stage of her journey. 3 months had passed since the crisis on Concordance Prime. The Nova Research Station now orbited the quarantine world, a gleaming facility funded by the Trade Guild and operated by a multi-species team of scientists. At its heart was a habitat designed to mimic this home environment, complete with rocky terrain, artificial weather systems, and lighting that cycled through the Death World's unique spectrum. Lucy Grant stood at the observation window, watching Nova move through her enclosure with a grace that still took her breath away. The had transformed in the months since her rescue. Her burns had healed completely, leaving only faint scars beneath her dark scales. Her bioluminescent markings blazed with vibrant purple light, patterns racing along her body in complex sequences that Lucy's team was slowly learning to decode. The research had been groundbreaking. Lucy's initial suspicions had been confirmed beyond any doubt. Were not just intelligent, they were sentient. Their light-based language contained thousands of distinct patterns, each carrying specific meaning. Nova had proven herself capable of learning, of problem-solving, of forming emotional bonds that went far beyond simple animal attachment. The door behind Lucy opened, and Dr. Park entered the observation room. He was the facility's medical officer, a soft-spoken man who had transferred from a hospital ship to join Lucy's team. "She is asking for you again," said with a smile. The feeding pattern, 3 quick flashes followed by a long pulse. Lucy laughed softly. "That one means she wants company, not food. We figured that out last week." She turned from the window, but I was heading down anyway. The entrance to Nova's habitat was a reinforced airlock designed to contain a creature capable of tearing through starship hulls. Lucy passed through the security checkpoints without concern. The safety measures were still in place, but everyone on the station knew they were unnecessary. Nova had never shown aggression toward any member of the team. The habitat's door slid open, and Lucy stepped into an environment that would have killed most species in minutes. The air was thick and warm, filled with particles that shimmered in the specialized lighting. Strange plants grew from artificial soil, species transplanted from the quarantine world during the facility's construction. It was alien and beautiful and utterly deadly to anyone without proper protection. Lucy wore no protection at all. Nova appeared from behind a rocky outcropping, her massive form moving with silent grace. The 6 golden eyes fixed on Lucy, and her bioluminescent markings erupted in a cascade of light. The pattern was complex, layered with meaning that Lucy was still learning to understand, but the core message was clear. Happiness, greeting, family. "Hello, Nova," Lucy said, reaching out to touch the creature's snout. "Did you miss me?" Nova made the low, rumbling sound that Lucy had come to recognize as her version of a purr. The lowered herself to the ground, curling her massive body around the human woman in a protective embrace. It was a greeting ritual they had developed over months of contact, a way for Nova to express affection without accidentally harming her fragile friend. Lucy settled against Nova's warm scales and pulled out her. "I have news," she said. "Ambassador is coming to visit. He wants to see your progress for himself." Nova's markings flickered in a pattern that indicated curiosity. "He has been telling the other species about you," Lucy continued, "about what we have learned." She smiled. "They are considering reopening contact with the Death Worlds. They want to know if there are other intelligent species like you that we have been ignoring." The implications were staggering. For generations, the Death Worlds had been written off as sources of nothing but danger. Now, because of one human's refusal to accept that narrative, the entire galaxy was reconsidering its assumptions. Merchant Lord had gotten his plague research. Nova's unique biology had indeed held the key to a cure, but not in the way they had expected. Instead of harvesting genetic material from Lucy's team had developed a synthetic treatment based on proteins found in Nova's blood. The cure was being distributed to colonies throughout the sector, saving millions of lives without causing Nova any harm. Himself had visited the station once, watching from behind the safety glass as Nova performed cognitive tests that would have challenged many of the so-called civilized species. He had left without speaking to Lucy directly, but she had received a message from him the following day. It contained only 2 words. "I understand." Security Chief had also been in contact. He had not visited the station, and Lucy suspected he never would, but he had sent her a communication that she kept saved on her personal device. He wrote about his brother, about the attack that had taken his life, about the hatred had carried for creatures like Nova. He wrote that he still grieved, still struggled with the knowledge that the creature who killed his brother was not the same as the creature Lucy had befriended, but he was trying to understand. He was trying to see beyond his pain. "Some things are more complicated than I believed," he had written. "Perhaps that is a lesson worth learning." Commander Hal Cooper visited regularly, bringing supplies from Concordance Prime and news from the galaxy beyond. He was proud of what Lucy had accomplished, though he expressed it in his typically understated way. She had proven something that humans had always known about themselves, but that other species had never understood. Humans were not just survivors from a death world. They were bridge builders, creature tamers, and friend makers. They saw potential where others saw only threats. They offered trust when logic demanded fear. It was not a weakness, as so many species believed. It was their greatest strength. Lucy looked up as Nova shifted beside her, this massive head turning toward the habitat's entrance. A moment later, the door opened and appeared with a group of visitors. Ambassador was among them, his compound eyes taking in every detail of the habitat with obvious fascination. Nova's markings flickered in a pattern Lucy had taught her specifically for this moment. It meant welcome in the trade language, translated into bioluminescent code. Stopped walking, his 4 arms falling to his sides in apparent shock. "It speaks," he said quietly. "The creature speaks." "She has been speaking all along," Lucy replied. "We just were not listening." The ambassador watched as Nova rose to her full height, towering over the visitors without any sign of aggression. The markings pulsed with gentle light, patterns that conveyed peace and curiosity, and something that might have been pride. "I was wrong," said finally. "We were all wrong." He turned to face Lucy directly. "Your species frightens me sometimes, Lucy Grant. The things you are willing to risk, the trust you offer so freely. It defies everything I understand about survival." Lucy smiled and placed her hand on Nova's snout. "Survival is not just about avoiding danger," she said. "Sometimes it is about making connections that others think are impossible." She looked at the ambassador, at the beside her, at the research station filled with scientists from a dozen species working together to understand a creature they had once feared. "That is what humans do," she said simply. "We find family in the strangest places." Nova's bioluminescent markings pulsed in the pattern Lucy knew best of all, the one that meant gratitude and belonging and love. The leaned down and pressed her massive head against Lucy's palm, the same gesture of trust she had offered in that dark cargo bay 3 months before. Outside the habitat, the quarantine world turned slowly beneath them, a planet full of creatures that the galaxy had dismissed as monsters. But Lucy knew better now. Monsters were made by fear and cruelty, not by nature. With patience and kindness, even the most dangerous beast could become something else entirely. A friend, a companion, a family member. Lucy scratched Nova's snout and felt the creature's rumbling purr vibrate through her entire body. Some things, she thought, were worth any risk at all.